In the carriage with G there travelled A, a well-known journalist, who was at that time being sent away from Petersburg. This was just before the revolution. We, who were seeing G off, were standing at one end of the carriage, while at the other end stood a group seeing A off. I did not know A personally, but among the people seeing him off were several acquaintances of mine, and even a few friends. 2 or 3 of them had been at our meetings, and these were going from one group to the other. A few days later, the paper to which A was contributing contained an article on the road, in which A described the thoughts and impressions he had on the way from Petersburg to Moscow. A strange Oriental had travelled in the same carriage with him, who, among the bustling crowd of speculators who filled the carriage, had struck him by his extraordinary dignity and calm, exactly as though these people were for him like small flies upon whom he was looking from inaccessible heights. A judged him to be an oil king from Baku, and in conversation with him, several enigmatic phrases that he received still further strengthened him in his conviction that here was a man whose millions grew while he slept, and who looked down from on high at bustling people who were striving to earn a living and to make money. My fellow traveller kept to himself also. He was a Persian or Tartar, a silent man in a valuable Astrakhan cap. He had a French novel under his arm. He was drinking tea, carefully placing the glass to cool on the small windowsill table. He occasionally looked with the utmost contempt at the bustle and noise of those extraordinary, gesticulating people, and they on their part glanced at him, so it seemed to me, with great attention, if not with respectful awe. What interested me most was that he seemed to be of the same southern Oriental type as the rest of the group of speculators, a flock of vultures flying somewhere into Aragonian space in order to tear some carrion or other. He was swarthy with jet-black eyes and a moustache like Zelim Khan. Why does he so avoid and despise his own flesh and blood? But to my good fortune he began to speak to me. They worry themselves a great deal, he said, his face motionless and sallow, in which the black eyes, polite as in the Oriental, were faintly smiling. He was silent and then continued, Yes, in Russia at present there is a great deal of business out of which a clever man could make a lot of money. And after another silence he explained, After all, it is in the war. Everyone wants to be a millionaire. In his tone, which was cold and calm, I seemed to detect a kind of fatalistic and ruthless boasting which verged on cynicism, and I asked him somewhat bluntly, And you? What? He asked me back. Do not you also want this? He answered with an indefinite and slightly ironical gesture. It seemed to me that he had not heard or had not understood, and I repeated, Don't you make profits too? He smiled particularly quietly and said with gravity, We always make a profit. It does not refer to us. War or no war, it is all the same to us. We always make a profit. G, of course, meant esoteric work, the collecting of knowledge and the collecting of people, but A understood that he was speaking about oil. It would be curious to talk and become more closely acquainted with the psychology of a man whose capital depends entirely upon order in the solar system, which is hardly likely to be upset, and whose interests for that reason prove to be higher than war and peace. In this way, A concluded the episode of the Oil King. We were particularly surprised by G's French novel. Either A invented it, adding it to his own impressions, or G actually made him see, that is, presume, a French novel in some small volume in a yellow, or perhaps not even a yellow cover, because G, of course, did not read French.